Welcome to R&R Racing. I'm Chris Wilbers.
And I'm George Templeton.
And now it's down to one race before the chase. On Sunday night, Tony Stewart finally broke through for his first win of the season, holding off Carl Edwards and Jimmie Johnson in the process. Now, considering that each of those three drivers made a statement with their performances in Sunday night's race, which driver were you most impressed by and why?
Well, there are a lot of very good choices, but I'm actually going to go with a guy who's had a lot of good cars this year that have turned into terrible finishes, but last night turned a bad car into a great finish. Jeff Burton was nowhere for most of that race, and he was down a lap at one point and loose most of the night. But there was Burton at the end of the race driving like a wild man, using every inch of the track and finishing fourth.
Well, that certainly was a different story than what we've seen from him for much of the year, because his cars have been good enough to have him challenge Harvick for the points lead. Now, the two I were most impressed with were Edwards and Johnson. And no, Edwards still hasn't won, but for a guy who had led all of 6 laps all season before Sunday, he's quietly put together 8 consecutive finishes in the top 12, 7 of those in the top 7. And he led 32 laps at a downforce track, which should bode well for his chase chances. Now, Johnson also gets a nod because, not surprisingly, when the calendar hits September, that team is just strong. And they may have won that race if the race Sunday night would have been another 25 laps. Topic 2, which is also our question of the week. According to a report by Ford Racing, NASCAR officials are still discussing significant changes to the chase. Brian France said that he wanted to add World Series Game 7 excitement to the end of the postseason, and there's talk that there may be a winner-take-all format in the season finale. Do you see any way they would actually go through with that, and what would you think of it?
It depends, because if they do something like I suggest and eliminate chase drivers as it goes along, that'll be all right. But if they have all 12 drivers with a theoretical chance to win in the last race, I just think that's a bad idea. Because you know what? We've already rendered 26 races of the season mostly meaningless. It's nice to see that they might even make 35 races mostly meaningless. Heck, go for the whole hog, Brian France. Let's have the Sprint Cup Championship come down to wind tunnel testing and a session of go fish between the drivers. Because we wouldn't actually want the races to matter now, would we?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I mean, why not have the finale be at Talladega so that everyone actually has that chance? The reason Game 7 works so well is because two teams have been evenly matched for 6 games. If one driver is far and away better than the others, this makes no sense. Plus, where would you have the race? The choice of track would have a huge impact on the outcome. And if that were the case, there's really no point in having a season championship. Just call each race a championship. And now let's talk about something that wasn't much more pleasant, the fantasy contest. Stephen Collins of Richmond won this edition with 388 points. Now, my effort, which looked good a third of the way through the race, was sabotaged by Denny Hamlin's engine, Casey Kane's crash, and as I finished with 270 points. George, however, stumbled to a woeful 190.
Oh, it was a joy to watch my drivers drop like flies in the latter part of the race. Of course, I had Hamlin and Kane as well, and then rip went Kevin Harvick's front tire. A lovely evening in Atlanta. Hey, at least the race was fun to watch.
Well, that brings us to Saturday night at Richmond International Raceway for the Air Guard 400. Kyle Busch, who went a whole weekend without winning, looks for the season sweep at RIR, while Denny Hamlin is the defending winner and desperately needs a good finish to build some momentum for the chase after some very, very poor finishes down the stretch. And let's not forget about Jimmie Johnson, who has won at Richmond 3 times. So, George, who's your choice, and which driver could pull a surprise for the win on Saturday night?
Oh, I hate to say it, but Atlanta, it looks like the chase specialist Jimmie Johnson is rounding into form. There are a lot of tracks like Atlanta in the chase, and there he was finishing 3rd. I have a really bad feeling about this. In terms of a surprise winner, I think it could be Jamie McMurray, who indeed needs a minor miracle to get into the chase. He's had some good luck at Richmond, and it is the sort of track where a minor miracle is possible.
Yeah, I didn't know that Jimmie Johnson's full name was Chase Specialist Jimmie Johnson. But I do agree about him, and that race on Sunday night was a horrible sign for people who are not fans of him. Now, I would pick Denny Hamlin here, but after his engine blew on Sunday night, his body language is really starting to scare me. I'm curious if he can be the steady influence this team needs to right this ship, because he can still win this championship. So I'm going to go with Kyle Busch. He averages a 5.5 finish at Richmond, has finished in the top 5 9 times in 11 starts there. As for the surprise, I'll go with Ryan Newman. I mean, granted, by the time this race ends, he may have the entire Cup garage at his throat, but he runs very well there with an 11.4 average finish, 6 top 10s in his past 7 starts. And now for the bigger question. Will Clint Bowyer hold on for the 12th and final chase spot?
Well, Clint Bowyer has 117 points to the good, so it'd be a real surprise if he didn't make it. It looks like the drama is going to be confined to who gets the last 10 bonus points before the chase starts.
Yeah, unless there's a pothole in the track at R&R that swallows up Bowyer's car, there's really no way to see him finishing bad enough to fall out of the chase. For all the drama we got last year, when it was actually much more exciting than the chase itself, this may be a letdown unless someone actually orders a code red on Clint Bowyer. Well, that's it for now. Join us on Friday night when we'll have a special post-qualifying edition of the show. We'll preview the race and the drivers who still have a chance of making the chase. Then on Sunday morning, we will be back to look at the fallout from all the action of the Sprint Cup race and get you ready for the Sprint Cup playoffs.
In addition, look for special sections Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, previewing and reviewing all the nationwide and Cup action at Richmond International Raceway. We'll have features of several top drivers, including Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, and his special Puppies and Baby Seals paint scheme. Oh, I can't wait for that. Jeff Gordon, Jamie McMurray, and many others, as well as a full list of driver appearances throughout the weekend.
And while you're at the site, check out our blog, R&R Racing Extra. Coming Tuesday evening, I'll share more thoughts about what we're in store for Richmond and what to expect from this year's chase. And don't forget to enter our fantasy contest for Richmond. Until later this weekend, he's George Templeton.
He's Chris Wilbers.
And we are R&R Racing.